Hello, my name is Canaply, and in today's video, I am watching the history of Toxicity and Dead by Daylight. I am mainly watching this because I've been getting back into Dead by Daylight recently. And by back into, I mean like getting into it pretty much for the first time. I have less than 100 hours right now still in the game. And I thought this would be a good way to just learn more about, kind of pass into the community and the toxicity of it, especially since I've seen a lot of it within my less than 100 hours. And I've played both Killer and Survivor. If you want to check out this video for yourself, here's the title. I will also try to have the URL in the description of this video. So if you want to watch it without my annoying commentary, then you can.
Hey everyone, Dead by Daylight and Toxicity are two words that come hand in hand. The game has become known in many ways for its in-game toxicity between its two sides of Survivor and Killer. Today let's explore the history of this toxicity, all the different forms, and when they appeared and how they changed. One of the first forms of toxicity, and one that originated not from Dead by Daylight, but from ancient gaming practice, is that of teabagging.
Okay, I mean, teabagging is kind of in everything. Yeah, this one, it kind of depends on the person as well.
The origin of this I'm not entirely sure, but I think where I learnt it from was Halo. What's so interesting about this too is that it's debatably not even considered toxic in other games.
I know some people see it as like a challenge, some people, see it as disrespectful, some people see it as toxic. It kind of depends on who's the one doing it and who's the one receiving it.
But it's generally considered just a bit of fun, a bit of a poke. But in DBD, it's almost always considered an act of toxicity, aggravation. Teabagging has been around since the very start of the game and its early days, a simple form of toxicity doable by any of the survivors, simply by crouching repeatedly, typically used to annoy, aggravate, or sometimes intimidate killers or even other survivors. The teabagging game was changed for the first time with the release of Pig, who was the first character on the killer side who could technically crouch up and down, and return a teabag or two. The true king, however, came later with Ghostface, able to spam it just as fast as the survivors. This being one of the main reasons why people actually like to play him, is that he can teabag back. Pointing and come hearing, I guess is what I'll call it. This is an ability belonging to survivors.
This one, yeah, I definitely see more people just doing this toxicity. I do, playing Survivor recently, I have seen a lot of survivors doing it for, like, come here to, like, go work on a gen together and stuff. But when playing Killer, you can definitely see it. A lot of people will, like, vault a window like that and just do pointing and stuff.
Can point,
especially if you do like a swing and miss.
Come here action. The intent of these is for survivor coordination. It can be used in this way. I typically use this, for example, if there's a stealth killer watching myself and a teammate on a generator. I'll point to the killer.
I've seen this a lot while playing Survivor.
It can have its uses for genuine coordination. However, what it's often used for is to be toxic. A typical thing to do is for a survivor to vault something and then point at the killer. This being an act meant to make them angry or agitate them. A "you can't catch me." The come here can be used too and simply encourages or riles the killer up to chase the survivor. Equally, these can be used by survivors in a genuine way toward killers too. Some see the points as simple, playful gestures. A come here could simply be the survivor wanting to be in chase, but not necessarily to agitate, but to simply play the game and have fun looping. It's one of those strange acts where whoever you ask, they'll have a different opinion on it. Did the survivor intend to be toxic, or were they simply encouraging the chase because they were enjoying it? Most would lean toward toxicity. This one really hasn't changed much through the years. There's only ever been two actions doable by survivors, and
okay, I know this is a video about toxicity, but I can't get over how stupid that looks every time I see it. The way they run.
There's only ever been two actions by survivors, and killers have never really been
every time I
see
the
same back.
They
can sort of spam their powers and create these like weird animations, but it's not quite the same. The opposite for killers could maybe be hitting the survivors on hook, sort of annoying them in a situation where they can't be caught, similar to pointing over a pallet or a window, where
that one, yeah, from what I've seen, most survivors interpret that as toxic. I know a lot of killers though, or at least I learned that if you hook a survivor and then you hit them immediately after, it'll cancel their scream, so it won't be the long loud scream. So if you hit them, you'll just be able to hear quicker. It won't be that long scream. So this way, I know a lot of people don't do it to be toxic, but at the same time, a lot of people do. It's like a 50-50.
the killer can't get to you. In that situation, a survivor can also not really do much, so maybe that could be the equivalent. Slugging and tunneling are two toxic actions quite unique to DBD, due to it being an asymmetrical game, and further these terms only really being applicable to DBD. Slugging being the act of leaving a survivor on the ground so that they resemble a slug, then tunneling being the act of focusing only on one survivor as the killer, having tunnel vision. These things developed early on in the game as two strategies commonly looked down upon by players.
These, I don't really know if they're toxic. It's very annoying when it happens, but a lot of the time it's just doing it for giving you an advantage. Like tunneling, getting one out right away, it just makes the rest of the game easier. But then for that person getting tunneled, it kind of ruins the game, which they'll probably see it as toxic, which it's just very annoying. But for the killer, they're just playing the game. Same with slugging. When you get to like the last two people, slugging for the 4K. Otherwise, if you kill one, the hatch just spawns and all the hard work you did to get rid of all of them, even if there's like 4 gens remaining, the survivor just gets a free escape. So both ways are kind of just...
such issues and points of contention, in fact, that the devs had to add specific perks to counter these actions. Bill was where they were really implemented, with his perks Unbreakable and Borrowed Time countering slugging and tunneling respectively. They were pretty successful too, and have been adjusted over the years. Over the years, we've also accumulated a whole lot more than these original two. In July 2022, Borrowed Time was implemented as base kit for survivors, meaning you got it regardless of running the perk or not. Issues like tunneling were debatably encouraged too at certain points in DBD history. For example, with the release of Myers, they added a bunch of obsession-based perks, an obsession being a unique survivor who provided a unique effect when you went for them. And because many of the effects were positive when you went for this survivor,
most perks nowadays
encouraged you to tunnel the survivor.
Obsession.
Many of Myers' perks were eventually changed and moved away from the goal of tunneling. Nowadays, there's not really any perks I would say that encourage tunneling. They all seem to be designed specifically to not encourage that, and the obsession isn't always the person you want to be going for. They're actually the person you often want to avoid. So that's the way they've...
Ones with like play with your food and stuff. It's like go and chase, but then just leave them.
There's camping. Camping can be found in other games unlike slugging and tunneling, and simply refers to the killer camping nearby a hook or possibly an area around it.
Camping sucks. I've never minded too much when it happens to me. Because if they're just gonna hook and then just face camp, just like sit in front of my face or whatever, if everyone else does generators, the killer just loses the game. It's just 3 people on generators for however long I'm on hook for, which if it's my first time being hooked, I am gonna be there long enough for them to complete every generator. And if the killer decides to leave, then you're able to come on hook. But the only time I ever hated it was back, I used to play Identity V, which is a similar game to this. There was like a spider character where once she could down you, she could like wrap you up in like a webbing thing. Every single time I ever went against that killer, they would web you up and then they would just sit on top of you. And it was so annoying because I wouldn't mind that, except for nobody does generators. They all try to rescue you, and every single time they would end up dying. But yeah, if they're just face camping, just do generators. Like it sucks for the person getting face camped, but the killer loses the game in the end. As long as you do gens.
In the same way, this is viewed as toxic, as it targets or locks down a single player. A meme and the face of camping is Bubba, a killer able to instantly down multiple survivors. Basement Bubba is sort of the face of camping, with the basement being a confined area, with only one
Bubba does what Bubba
making
pleases.
It very easy to camp. In October of 2023, camping was sort of finally solved by adding an anti-camp feature. Basically, if you stand by the hook for too long, the survivor will eventually be able to unhook themselves automatically, without the need or help from another teammate, and further things like base kit Borrowed Time also helped with camping, allowing you to get safer saves. Camping has always sort of been a thing, and was the core strategy very early on into the game. Characters like Trapper were even able to place their bear traps directly beneath the hook when someone got unhooked, so it wasn't exactly like the game discouraged.
I wish I could go against more
Bubba,
trappers.
Though, I would say
You have
is
to
the
go
real
against one.
turning point of camping, and was when it got very bad, and is what prompted many of these changes today. Gen rushing is sort of the survivor equivalent of tunneling, with it being a high focus on completing the objective for the survivor side.
I don't know if gen rushing is, I guess, toxic. It's very annoying as killer, but the only time it's annoying is if all four survivors are running toolboxes with like brand new parts to where this just gen's done just immediately. Other than that, if they're just all on gens without like toolboxes and stuff and they're completing all generators, usually that's just the killer isn't giving enough pressure, which I wouldn't really say is toxic. That's just annoying if they're all running toolboxes.
In as quick a time as possible.
But yeah, it's
this
also
has
the
taken
objective.
many forms across the years, with the oldest version being the original brand new part, able to instantly complete a generator with the click of a button.
I don't know if I played way back when that was a thing. I know I used to play mobile for like maybe I had an hour total on the game for mobile. I don't remember that, but that seems stupid. I want to know who thought that was a good idea.
A perk that contributed to it for a long
Especially if all four survivors had that. That's just four generators done within the first like 15 seconds.
time too was Prove Thyself, a perk that provided a stackable 15% bonus for each survivor working with you on a generator. It has taken many forms over the years though. Much like tunneling, it's highly debated whether this is indeed toxic, as many see it as just doing the objective. You have to do gens to get out, and so focusing hard on generators is just playing the game. Tunneling can be defended in a similar way. It's widely known after all that in the majority of matches, the most efficient strategy is to just get rid of one of the four survivors as soon as possible. Therefore, tunneling is quite appealing in that sense. Flashlight clicking was something survivors used to be able to do from the game's inception, all up until patch 6.3.0 in 2022. Flashlight clicking simply being to repeatedly spam click the use button for the flashlight, which would make it repeatedly click and spam the beam toward its target. You can still kind of do this today, it's just a lot slower and it doesn't really have quite the same effect, but people do still do it. It's sort of an outdated form of toxicity, I suppose you could say. In 2022 it was removed, altering flashlights to have a slower click speed, which stopped this ability to spam click and create the sound. This change though wasn't even seemingly for toxicity reasons, but instead due to the possibility of it causing harm, I think because of epilepsy. However, this was more than likely a double patch of sorts, solving the clear problem for causing other players harm,
flashing lights usually not a good idea.
A frequently complained about mechanic used to be toxic. Despite all this though, flashlight clicking was still around for about 6 years and was considered one of the clearest forms of toxicity. Its removal was ultimately a good thing. Whatever this is next up. This is something more recent over the last couple years, a new form of teabagging seemingly. This is one of the main ways of being toxic that I personally do find a little bit far. There's something...
This one, the only time I've seen people do it though, hence again less than 100 hours, or only time I've ever done it, is when the survivor is just blatantly being toxic, like doing everything, or it's like a bully squad, or they're just doing something that's just like the most annoying toxicity thing ever. And then you finally get them down, and then you just start doing this. Be like, yeah, where'd all the toxicity go?
That just seems a bit much, a bit too fluid, and yeah. This action, whilst being possible since the game's inception, seems to have only been popularized recently. I've personally encountered this in a fair number of recent games where I hadn't before. This action is often used specifically on killers who are unable to teabag, which is the majority of them. A substitute action for it. What do you all think of this? Giving up is a form of toxicity that's quite unclear on its real definition. However, most would consider it toxic to give up for, well, any purpose really.
I don't know if I've ever found giving up toxic. Usually if the killer gives up, it's they could be having a rough day, anything like that. So it's usually like not toxic. It should just be they just don't want to deal with whatever is going on in game. And if a survivor does it, it's more of just they a bitch. If they just like rage quit because they get down within the first 30 seconds, it's just annoying. Again, not really toxic. It's just, again, they could also have stuff going on, but usually it's just they're giving up way too quick and it's just more annoying for the other survivors. The killer usually doesn't mind, but that usually encourages tunneling the bot.
This has happened
That's like
throughout
the only
DBD
time
history
tunneling's
in
okay.
face of various metas or overpowered characters. One of the most famous instances was when Legion were quite broken, with their strategy where you were basically unable to escape their pursuit, as they could force you to bleed out or allow you to down them. This caused mass DCs at the time and players to give up. A more recent example of this is with Skull Merchant. She's probably the case in fact of it happening the most in DBD history. This was largely...
Although I guess now that I think about it, I have seen a lot of when you see those videos of like Twitch streamers like rage quit whatever, and they'll see what killer it is and they'll be like, I'm just leaving or whatever. This guy's a piece of shit or whatever this is, and they'll just like be hating on the person playing the killer just because of the killer they're playing. So I guess there is probably some toxicity in it, but the act of it alone isn't necessarily toxic.
Down to her primary camping strategy at the time, in combination with the gen kick meta, which caused a number of issues within the community and mass DCs against Merchant. She could protect the gens with her drones whilst repeatedly kicking them with slowdown perks, making a very unenjoyable game. Even pro teams struggled to break out of Skull Merchant's hold. Where many other characters have caused DCs in DBD history, such as Legion or Hag, Skull Merchant is the clearest example of people giving up due to her playstyle and overall character, to the point that many even consider giving up against her specifically isn't even toxic, but instead playing her is. This is quite an outdated mindset though, with her going through a number of changes. Even after over a year of her being out of her broken state though, people still frequently DC against her or simply give up. A character that seems to invite toxicity of many forms simply by her existence within a match. So the game really did change in terms of giving up and DCs, or dying on purpose on first hook because of Skull Merchant. Bully squads as a term is something that has developed over the years and also changed.
Yeah, I mean, bully squads are just, that's like the most blatant use of toxicity or whatever, is when they just run in to not play the game, but to just ruin the killer's day. That's like, I guess, the biggest form of toxicity I've seen in this game.
In the early days of DBD, a bully squad would be a 4-stack of survivors, all with flashlights, insta-blind ones, communicating to blind the killer as many times as possible, not for the goal of winning, but instead the goal of annoying them. That's where the term bully squad really comes from. It infers an idea that the squad of survivors is entering into a match to bully the killer player, annoying and frustrating them over winning. Often though, many teams who are just going into matches for fun can easily be mislabeled as a bully squad.
Yeah, usually if it's 4-stack and all that, it's not necessarily bully squad. It's usually just when they have like 4 toolbox, 4 flashlight, all same skin. They're all kind of like hovering around each other like flies to just make sure nobody is ever dead, not doing objective. Nowadays, though, it's not really too difficult to deal with them because most of them suck nowadays. Survivors have gotten so many perks that allow for getting a free second chance or whatever, with like the being able to take a third hit, getting in the locker, stunning. When you get picked up, you get instant drop. So most of them just get too cocky, or most of the squads suck but think they can just do it for free because of the perks, and it's usually pretty easy to deal with most of them nowadays.
Just because they're playing together as a group of 4 or a Swift. Nowadays, I'm not even too
and
sure.
Usually that's like the only time
squad. Probably
I can encourage slugging.
Sabotage toolboxes, maybe some flashlights still. Possibly you go for an anti-hook type build. There was a brief period where this was very strong with the old RPD and the old version of Boil Over, which made it very hard to hook people, especially when you worked as a team. There was also another occasion where bully squads could use the perks We're Gonna Live Forever and Soul Guard to out-heal the killer's attack rate, which was pretty crazy too. There's been lots of instances throughout DBD history, but those are some major ones. Endgame chat is a chat visible when a match ends, and is probably the most real and undeniable form of toxicity when it happens.
Yeah, this is just every game though. People suck. People are going to be toxic no matter what. So you could be like the nicest person ever, just playing for fun, all this, and just because something didn't go their way, all of a sudden you're just the biggest loser on earth. You know, everything's wrong with you. But then at the same time, if they remove it, it's just, I feel like in a way it would ruin the game. You wouldn't ever be able to communicate with each other. All the people that do just be like GG or like are nice, have like actual endgame chats. It would kind of ruin it for them. Same with what's going on with Roblox right now. They got rid of chat, and now I was seeing videos of everyone's moving to these different games. Everyone's protesting to bring it back and stuff. So just removing chat would take a lot of stuff away.
People can use this chat to type just about anything to the other side, and so it can be quite visceral. Unfortunately, people can misuse the chat to be quite rude or use insults. This is the form of toxicity most unacceptable, as it's not just an in-game action, which is debatable.
Also him just typing to himself.
When you're telling someone to go fuck themselves, there's not really much room for discussion. It's not okay to do this to people under any circumstance. There was a point in DBD's history too where it did not have a chat filter. The chat filter currently removing and censoring certain words when typed out and sent, so before it was far worse. The chat filter isn't exactly perfect, but I mean, I would rather it be there than it not be there. Playing for hatch is an interesting one and does apply to both sides. It used to be a bit different originally, as the hatch would spawn into the match far sooner. And
yeah, but it used to be it would spawn in with 2 generators remaining or 1 gen remaining, but it would be closed, but then you could open it with key or something like that. I've never liked the idea of hatch. Hatch always is very annoying because it just encourages, if there's 2 people remaining and there's like 3 gens, 4 gens, like you're not going to play the gens anymore. People are just going to start hiding in lockers, hiding corners of the maps, and it just kind of prolongs the game unnecessarily. And then if you do end up finding one person and the other one's hiding, and there's still 4 gens remaining, and the survivor ends up finding the hatch, it's just like giving a free escape to a team that didn't earn it, or to a person that didn't earn it. And it's just more 50 or like chance based once you get to the end. It's just looking for hatch, stalling it out. And then even with 2v8, that the beta testing, whatever that came out recently, when it would get down to like 4 people, it would just be everyone's hiding somewhere, and it just made the matches last so much longer because you just had to go searching for them. And it's just very annoying. I've never liked it. Even if they just change it to where like once hatch spawns, it pings it to the killer, so the killer can just make sure the game doesn't get hijacked or just searching for it for 5 minutes.
Possible to close for the killer. Therefore, when found, the killer would stand beside it and a hatch standoff would ensue. If the survivor jumps in, they could get grabbed, but their likely only chance of escape would be by jumping in. These could last a while. When the hatch got changed later down to be closable and to spawn in closer to the end of the match, these issues went away. Now the issues are more focused on killers slugging full teams to stop the hatch spawning at all and confirm.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Slugging for 4K. Like you intentionally will just leave people on ground, and then if the person is hiding, then it's just waiting out the bleed out time. So I don't know how long that is, but it's a good like 2 minutes of just waiting for him to die before the survivor can do anything, while the killer's just running around looking, which again is just like hijacking the game, prolonging it, whatever.
Confirming the 4K. For survivors, it's seen as toxic to abandon your team to go for the hatch, which is a solo escape only nowadays. Stealth-based perks like distortion would often be used for this playstyle, and to avoid getting caught, so you could sneak away and get the hatch. Not leaving is another thing people believe to be toxic. Staying in the match longer than you're required to. The gates are open, all survivors are safe, yet some will still stay at the gate and wait for the killer.
This one really depends on the what game it was. Like there's some games where it'll be like a nice kill or whatever, just messing around with the survivors and stuff, and they'll wait at the gate. A lot of them sometimes will just drop item, whatever, like give their item as like a thank you, all that stuff. But then there's a lot of times where if it's a bully squad or just a team that was doing really good, they'll just do it to kind of taunt. That's why if it's just like I was having a bad game, bad day, whatever, and they just roll, once exit gate's open, I just stand like in the middle of the map somewhere and just wait for them to leave, so they can't really do that. It's just leave. There's no point in staying.
It used to be a lot worse too back before the endgame collapse existed. The endgame collapse being a mechanic that forces the game to end 3 minutes after opening an exit gate or shutting the hatch. Back then you could reasonably hold the game indefinitely until the server eventually got shut down, which I think is about an hour of playtime. Therefore killers were sort of forced back then to push survivors out. Today it's not so much an issue, but people still don't like it. Some take the stance that they're staying out of altruism. They want the killer to get a hit on them before they leave. Most killer players, however, do not care about a single hit on a survivor exiting the match. Therefore, the whole practice is just generally considered toxic. This popularized the phrase in the community of just leave, and further the popularity of clips where survivors waiting at the exit gates are caught and downed by a killer.
It does also make really good videos, especially with like Springtrap now. they'll just be sitting there. You'll throw an axe in one of their backs and they just can't leave anymore.
You'll see lots of them titled stuff like, on this episode of Just Leave, and stuff like that. Yeah. Switching your item at the last second is oddly an action considered toxic by much of the community. The way this works...
This one is something that I brought over from Identity V. Again, it was similar, except for in Identity V, it doesn't really have items. It has just different characters have special abilities. So like one will have a gun, which you can just like shoot the killer, which it'll stun them. So kind of like flashlight, except for they don't have to be looking at you. One is like a portal, so you can just set up a portal on one side of the map and you can teleport to the other side. And if the killer goes through it shuts it down, but they also get slowed. One's with like crows for like vision. The embalmer could like revive people. There were so many like cool abilities, but people would also do it. They would wait until the killer readies up, and then they would switch their character and immediately ready up to lock the game, to kind of force the killer into something they weren't prepared for. So when I came to this game, I don't ready up until survivors ready up. It was just kind of my motto I brought in.
The item you intend to bring before the match and switching at the last second to a flashlight or toolbox, say. This can be done to conceal your intent to use that item or a build focused on it. This is one of the stranger ones to me due to how little items really affect gameplay, at least nowadays. Back in the day, sure, it was a bit more valid, with really broken things like old keys, which could allow for 4-man escapes through the hatch at 1 gen remaining, or 3 escapes at 2 gens, stuff like that. It was pretty crazy, to be fair. A last second switch to a key could make a difference. People mostly find this frustrating because they may adjust their build knowing there will be items brought into the match. A sudden change of item or character even can throw you off, as the timer is so close to completing too, it locks in the match.
I think the biggest thing for that is like flashlights and Lightborn. If you load in as killer and all 4 of them have flashlights, you might bring Lightborn. And if they're, say, Bully Squad or something, they all switch to toolboxes, then you kind of lost a perk. But I guess the only way they'd be able to ever fix that would be lock in survivors at 15 seconds or 10 seconds, and killer can still switch until like 5.
You can't leave by pressing the leave button. I think this is why it's considered toxic, as it's sort of deceptive or a small trick being played on the other side. Even if its effect is very little, it's a small curveball, and it will typically make the killer assume that the survivors have something devious in store, as they were trying to conceal it. As mentioned before, this was more of an issue back before. Back then though, killers could even change their killer in the pre-game lobby. You could see a lineup of survivors all with flashlights, and you could switch to nurse if you wanted to, even if you'd queued as trapper. Therefore, this tactic was likely to avoid that. If you see 4 survivors with no items, you're going to probably be more inclined to think they're going to play less toxic or be a quote-unquote bully squad. Therefore, they might conceal that they are hiding their items until the last moments when you cannot react. This has been used throughout DBD history, although admittedly happens less nowadays due to items being nerfed down quite substantially. Flashlights are far weaker and can no longer insta-blind, medkits can no longer insta-heal, and toolboxes are far slower and have much weaker brand new parts. Still, people don't really like it when you switch at the last moment. Working with the other side. This has happened throughout DBD history, and well, it's sort of self-explanatory, this one. Working with the other side against your own just sort of sucks. This comes in many forms, from sandbagging, telling the killer where your teammates are, and so on.
Telling where people are to the killer, it depends. Like if someone's just like on a generator and you're running to them during chase and you like point to them, yeah, like that's just evil, no reason. But if it's down to like 2 or 3 people and someone's just sitting in a locker just waiting for everyone else to die, if you run up to the locker and point, then that's just like deserved. Like they're just hiding, playing selfish. So stuff like that, it's understandable. But yeah, sandbagging, telling teammates, all that, most of it's just depending on what they were doing, if they deserved it. If one of the survivors being toxic and you sandbag them, well, they had it coming.
Toxicity in Dead by Daylight, therefore, is a strange thing. Something quite different to other games, I would say, where it's fairly debatable that many actions in-game that are considered toxic are simply the meta or efficient strategy of winning, but they're actively perceived as toxic. What do you think about toxicity in DBD, and which things do you perceive as toxic? Thanks for watching, and goodbye.
That was actually a really good video. If you do want to watch it again or go support it, this is the channel. I'll have it in the description as well. So if you do like it, make sure to go check it out. Give it a like as well. and I will see you guys in the next one.